Welcome to Scottish Horror Stories. All stories on this channel are fictional stories based in real places in Scotland. Please like and subscribe to the channel for many more stories and horror. In the heart of Aberdeen, Scotland, a shadow lurked in the Granite City's misty alleyways. The locals had dubbed the mysterious figure the Granite Phantom, a name whispered with fear in the pubs along Belmont Street and Union Terrace. The first body was discovered in the quiet residential area of Old Aberdeen, near the historic King's College. A young woman, a student at the university, was found lifeless on a crisp autumn morning. The police were baffled. There were no signs of struggle, no immediate cause of death. It was as if the life had simply been drained from her. A month later, another victim was found in Dundee, a quaint and picturesque fishing village at the city's edge. This time, it was an elderly fisherman, well known and beloved by the community. The circumstances were eerily similar to the first murder. The fear began to seep deeper into the city's bones. As the weeks passed, the Granite Phantom struck again and again. Rosemount, Ferryhill, and Torry, no part of Aberdeen seemed safe. Each body was discovered in a state of unnatural peace, their faces serene as if they had welcomed death. The pattern was chillingly consistent, yet there was no physical evidence to link the crimes. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing but a growing sense of dread. Detective Inspector Fiona MacLeod, a seasoned officer with a sharp mind and a deep connection to her hometown, was assigned to the case. She pored over the details, trying to find a thread that connected the victims. They were from all walks of life: students, retirees, professionals, even a local artist whose studio was nestled in the cobbled streets of Castlegate. Despite the mounting pressure from the media and the public, Fiona worked tirelessly. She visited the crime scenes, spoke with friends and families of the victims, and reviewed hours of CCTV footage. Her investigation led her to the shadowy corners of Aberdeen, where the city's rich history intertwined with its darkest secrets. It was during a late-night walk along the deserted beachfront of Aberdeen's Esplanade that Fiona had a breakthrough. She remembered an old legend her grandmother had told her about a figure who roamed the city in the 19th century, taking lives in a similar manner. The legend spoke of a man who had dabbled in dark arts, a man who was said to be immortal. Fiona's research led her to an abandoned house in the heart of Rubislaw Den, a place long forgotten by time. The house belonged to Alistair McClellan, a name that appeared in old police records and local folklore. Alistair was rumored to be a practitioner of ancient rituals, seeking eternal life through the sacrifice of others. Gathering a team, Fiona approached the dilapidated mansion with caution. Inside, they found a hidden room filled with arcane symbols and ancient texts. In the center of the room was a journal, its pages filled with meticulous notes about each victim, detailing their lives, their routines, and the precise moment when they would be most vulnerable. The final entry in the journal sent a chill down Fiona's spine. It described her in detail, her habits, her routines, and the moment she would be alone. The Granite Phantom had been watching her, planning her demise. With this crucial evidence, Fiona and her team set a trap. They staked out the locations listed in the journal, hoping to catch the Phantom before he could claim another victim. Days turned into nights, and just when hope seemed to wane, they caught sight of a shadowy figure moving through the darkness near Seaton Park. The arrest was swift and decisive. Alistair McClellan, looking eerily unchanged from the old photographs, was taken into custody. His trial was a media sensation, and his conviction brought a collective sigh of relief to Aberdeen. The city slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the scars of the Granite Phantom's reign remained. Fiona MacLeod continued her work, forever changed by the darkness she had uncovered, knowing that while the Phantom was behind bars, The echoes of his terror would linger in Aberdeen's granite streets for years to come. In the rugged fishing town of Peterhead, Scotland, the sea was a revered yet feared companion. Its capricious nature was well understood by the locals, especially the seasoned fishermen who navigated its depths. Among them were Ian and Malcolm, two men as famous for their seafaring skills as for their notorious drinking binges. One fateful evening, the two friends stumbled out of the Muckle Tavern, their laughter echoing down the cobblestone streets as they swayed towards the harbor. The night was unusually warm for early autumn, and the sea lay calm and inviting under the silver light of a full moon. "Ian, let's take the Bonnie Marlin out for a quick run," Malcolm suggested. His speech slurred, but his spirit undiminished by the numerous pints they'd consumed. Ian, equally inebriated, nodded with a wide grin. "Aye, Malcolm, the sea's whispering our names. A wee adventure before dawn, eh?" Their plan was folly, driven by alcohol and bravado, but the men were undeterred. They untied the ropes securing the Bonnie Marlin, a sturdy fishing boat they had both known since their youth, and clumsily set off into the open sea. As the boat powered through the gentle waves, the men continued their revelry, singing old sea shanties and exchanging tales of past exploits. The farther they ventured from the safety of the harbor, the more the tranquility of the night seemed to envelop them. Hours passed, and the once gentle sea began to grow restless. The wind picked up, howling through the rigging, and the waves grew taller and more menacing. Ian and Malcolm, still caught in their drunken haze, barely noticed the change in the sea's demeanor until it was too late. A sudden unnatural fog rolled in, thick and disorienting, swallowing the Bonnie Marlin in its cold embrace. The air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding washed over the men as they peered into the white void. "Malcolm, can you see anything?" Ian called out, his voice tinged with unease. "Nay, a thing, Ian," Malcolm replied, squinting into the mist. "This fog came out of nowhere." Panic began to creep in as they realized they were lost. The familiar stars and coastline had vanished, replaced by an endless expanse of swirling fog. The boat lurched suddenly, striking something hard beneath the waves. Ian and Malcolm were thrown off balance, crashing onto the deck. "Hold on!" Ian shouted, scrambling to his feet as the boat began to list dangerously. Water poured in through a gaping hole in the hull, and the Bonnie Marlin started to sink rapidly. Frantic, the men tried to bail out the water with their hands, but their efforts were futile. Within minutes, the sea claimed the Bonnie Marlin, dragging Ian and Malcolm into its icy depths. Their screams were swallowed by the fog, leaving nothing but eerie silence. Back in Peterhead, dawn broke to the news that Ian and Malcolm were missing. Their absence was discovered when their boat was not found at its usual mooring. A search party was quickly assembled and boats combed the waters where they had last been seen. Days turned into weeks, and despite the extensive search, no trace of the Bonnie Marlin or its crew was ever found. The townspeople were left to speculate on their fate, their imaginations conjuring tales of sea monsters, ghostly apparitions, and cursed waters. The disappearance of Ian and Malcolm became a legend in Peterhead, a cautionary tale of the sea's unpredictable nature and the perils of underestimating its power. Fishermen spoke of ghostly figures seen on foggy nights, their voices faintly singing old sea shanties, forever lost at sea. The mystery of the Bonnie Marlin and its ill-fated crew remained unsolved, a haunting reminder of the thin line between adventure and tragedy. In the years that followed, the fishermen of Peterhead approached the sea with renewed respect and caution, always mindful of the fate that had befallen Ian and Malcolm on that fateful night. The last story for this video is about the Dundee butcher. In the quiet area of Fintry, nestled within the rolling hills of Dundee, lived a man named Ewan McAllister. Ewan was a butcher, a profession that had been in his family for generations. He was known for his skill with a knife, his hearty laugh, and his deep love for his wife, Fiona. Fiona McAllister was the envy of many in the village. With her auburn hair, sparkling blue eyes, and a smile that could light up the darkest room, she was the perfect partner to the burly and good-natured Ewan. They seemed to have the ideal marriage. Ewan ran the butcher shop with Fiona managing the finances and the customer orders. Together, they were a beloved part of the Fintry community. However, behind closed doors, their relationship was not as perfect as it appeared. Fiona had grown restless with her life and found herself drawn to a young farmer named Aidan MacLeod. Aidan was everything Ewan was not: adventurous, carefree, and passionate. Their affair began as a stolen kiss in the shadows of his barn on the outskirts of Forfar, but quickly escalated into something more. Ewan suspected nothing until one fateful evening. As he was closing up the shop, he overheard a conversation between two customers that sent a chill down his spine. "Did you hear about Fiona and Aidan?" one whispered. "Aye, it's a shame, poor Ewan. He doesn't have a clue," the other replied. Ewan's heart pounded in his chest as he processed the betrayal. He couldn't believe that Fiona, his beloved wife, could be unfaithful. He decided to confront her that night. After dinner, with a calm exterior masking the storm brewing inside him, Ewan asked Fiona if she had something to tell him. She denied any wrongdoing, but Ewan could see the guilt in her eyes. Desperation and rage clouded his judgment, and he demanded the truth. Cornered and unable to lie any longer, Fiona confessed. She admitted to the affair, pleading for forgiveness and promising it was over. But Ewan's world had already shattered. The love of his life had betrayed him, and the butcher's heart turned cold. In a blind rage, Ewan grabbed his trusty butcher knife, the very tool that had been an extension of his hand for years. He lunged at Fiona, who screamed in terror, but the blade struck true. Blood spilled across the kitchen floor as Ewan's fury unleashed itself in a flurry of stabs and slashes. When the red mist lifted, Fiona lay lifeless at his feet, her once beautiful eyes now staring vacantly. Ewan stood there, panting, the knife slipping from his bloodied hand. The reality of what he'd done began to sink in, and horror gripped his soul. He had murdered the woman he loved, the woman who had shared his life and his dreams. The next morning, the city of Dundee awoke to a gruesome scene. The butcher shop was closed, and the authorities were called. Ewan didn't resist arrest. He was a broken man, his spirit crushed by the weight of his actions. As he was led away, the customers whispered among themselves, their faces pale with shock and sorrow. Ewan McAllister, the once beloved butcher of Fintry, had become a tragic figure, a man who let jealousy and rage consume him, leading to an unforgivable act. Ewan was sentenced to life in prison, and the area of Fintry was never the same. The butcher shop was boarded up, a haunting reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded. And Ewan, sitting in his cell, spent his days consumed by regret, his heart forever haunted by the ghost of his beloved Fiona. What was your favorite story? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Scottish horror stories. Thank you and have a good sleep.
No! God, please, no! No! No!